great pleasure right now to welcome to our show Lois Travalena. And 1 year ago, coming up on June 28th, sadly, we lost one of the great entertainers, Fred Travalena. He'd been a guest many times on this show and always enjoyed talking to him. And Lois is joining us today as we celebrate his life. He has a couple of songs, one that he wrote and one that he recorded that's going to be put out on a CD. We'll find out about that. And Lois, a real pleasure to have a chance to talk to you. I know we've emailed over the past few years, but good to have a chance to talk to you today.
Doug, thank you very much. Thank you for calling. I'm thrilled that you responded, and of course keeping the talented Fred Travalena name alive is my job and the rest of my life. And I feel so strongly about his beautiful music because all of the words were so poignant and it showed the man because he loved love, I'll tell you, and he loved life. And so all of his love songs, we have an album, and you said you're going to play the We All Need Love Today.
Yes.
That's an album, a CD album that he put out several years ago with 11 original songs and 5 standard songs, with Wee Small Hours in the Morning, What's New, and all kinds of songs like that. But he loved writing music, and so this is a prime example of one of the songs that he wrote, all about love. We all need love today. You bet we do.
Mm-hmm.
And but we miss him sorely. It was a terrible, terrible week. Month. I've been going over in my mind this whole month, how we had him just a year ago, and he was so talented because a lot of people remember Fred Travalena, the comic impressionist,
right? And
how funny he was. He did over 400 voices, characters, sound effects, and animated voices, and so a lot of people remember him from that, and they don't know that he was a songwriter and lyricist. Every song he wrote, he also wrote the words for them. So, and that's kind of an unusual thing. Most people can write the lyrics, but they don't know what kind of a melody they want to it. On the other hand, Fred Travalena knew exactly what he wanted. So, I feel privileged that we still have his music. Anybody who wants his CDs, we have a website, www.fredtravalena.com, and so we can talk about his CDs and what he's got to offer the world still.
I remember seeing Fred, I guess going back, watching some of the Tonight Show, obviously, when I think he started in the, early 70s, but I saw a clip of him, I guess his first appearance on the Tonight Show, which was one of the great first shots ever on that program, and he did a bunch of singing impressions that night.
You bet. And he opened with an original song.
That's right, yeah.
And see, even back then, and nobody realized he was writing his own music then. Here's a story for you about the Tonight Show. Fred only did 17 of them, and 2 of them, I think, were Carson, and the other were, guest hosts, which they don't do today.
No.
But Rickles and Bob Newhart and David Brenner and whomever, Joan Rivers. But he did one show, and I just recently pulled it up with Bob Newhart. And he comes out, he does his whole shtick, stand-up comedy, ha-ha-ha, with music and whatever, sits down on the couch. We'll be right back after this message. Comes back, and Bob starts asking him questions, and da-da-da-da-da. And he says, Fred, I think I understand you write some music. We want to hear, we'll be right back, and Fred's going to sing a song for you. He sings the song, comes back and sits on the couch. 28 minutes on The Tonight Show.
Wow.
You wouldn't hear of that today.
No.
And it was comedy and the music, and oh, what a time. It was a beautiful, beautiful show. But back then they did those kinds of things, and they were entrepreneurs, and Carson built our entertainment world back then. And we don't have that anymore. We don't have entertainers like that anymore. We really don't. We have movie stars and people who write books and politicians on The Tonight Show, but it's not like building a specific star anymore.
The fun seems to have gone out of a lot of it. You watch the shows today, it's more making fun of people. I mean that can be funny in a way, but I think it's gone too far. But you look at some of those great old shows from the 60s and 70s, even into the 80s, sitting around like, Dean Martin. Remember those great shows when he was on with Carson, Bob Hope, and all those great comedians? They seemed to have fun doing it. There was nothing mean-spirited about it.
I see those Dean Martin shows and I just cry. They were so funny.
Oh yeah.
Funny shows. I wish we had more variety shows today. We need it to make us happy again.
Oh sure. And Fred, of course, played Las Vegas so many years, and
yes.
When you still had the headliners in Vegas, you don't seem to have as many of those anymore either. But he was one of those entertainers that could stand up there and do an hour and a half, 2 hours by himself. You have a band with him, but he could entertain for that long, and you don't see that much anymore either, do you?
No. He worked in Vegas in 2007, was his last engagement in Vegas, and but yeah, he used to work there with Anne Margaret, I just saw her the other night. Oh, what a privilege to see her. And all the biggies, Tony Bennett and you name them. He worked with them. Johnny Mathis. And those were fun years too, where he went on the road with a lot of the people. Shirley MacLaine, she was a sweetheart to work with. And Dancer kicked those legs way up there, Oh, those were the days.
And Fred probably did one of the best Frank Sinatra imitations of anybody. May have had him the closest anybody ever came to getting Sinatra's voice.
Thank you. You are so correct. We feel he did the best of all the Impressionists. And please keep in mind that the Impressionistic world has pretty much died off.
Yeah.
I know Rich Little is still out there. Louise Duart, female impressionist.
Sure, Louise, right.
But all the others are gone. At one time, there were only 5. Rich, Fred, Frank Gorshin, George Kirby, Marilyn Michaels.
Yeah.
And then a new guy came on the scene, and he worked Vegas, and he's even passed. He was younger than Fred. So it's, I don't even hear, but then again, who do they do impressions of today? Brad Pitt? Tom Cruise?
There's no distinctive voices anymore.
There's no Cagney or Jimmy Stewart of today, So it's a little bit different in doing. Fred did a lot of the politicians also.
Did a great Nixon, remember?
Oh yeah.
Great Reagan. I remember seeing him do Reagan. Yeah.
And of course, being an impressionist, and Fred did at last count 8 different presidents from Kennedy all the way up, and so you could never tell was he a Democrat or was he a Republican because he always did crazy stuff for each one of them. It was so fun.
He did a bit on one of the interviews I did with him where he does from Kennedy right and through for Obama, but before to Bush number 2, all the voices kind of in a string together. It was very great bit that he did. Yeah.
He did, and he was known for that. But going back to his Frank Sinatra impression, he did all 3 from the time he was back in the 40s and then he did 3 different Frank Sinatras, which was awesome. And nobody could do that. There's a couple people that still think they can do a good impression of Sinatra, but we say Fred did the best.